that link so you can get access to it. Awesome. So I'll send you guys the link for that cloud recording so you can get access to it.
All right. So welcome to day number 15. We are 50% through this month-long summit. I still feel like a crazy person because I cannot figure out why I thought this was a good idea, but I am so excited for everybody. Our presenter today, we actually have a number of great presenters, but this particular individual, I know a lot of you already know him. His reputation precedes him. Mr. Guy Timberlake, the visionary behind a number of small business organizations. I mean, I don't think this man sleeps, but his charisma really radiates to the screen. And, you know, of course, you get 2 for 1 during this session. So Guy said, hey, listen, you know, I never do the standard. So he's actually going to be doing 2 different presentations that will interflow. So you guys are definitely going to get the most bang for your buck today. And I am certain that nobody is going to leave this session regretting it. So I personally am going to be sitting back and really taking it all in. Guy, I apologize. I probably have a plethora of questions. I'm sure I've been the most annoying person on all of these sessions because it's just been, all of our speakers have been absolutely amazing. But with that said, I did want to let you guys know that this is a webinar. It is being recorded, which is not traditional for Guy. He said, for you, I will let you record. So he does not traditionally allow that to happen. So this is even more special. So I'm super excited. But we do have a Q&A function and a chat function. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A field. I will be monitoring it and assisting Guy throughout the presentation. Now, he did say that his first slide deck, it's a little bit quicker. So he said, hey, if we can wait for questions towards the end. But on the second session, it is going to be much more interactive. So he encouraged individuals to go ahead, fire away with those questions. So I know that people are still probably trickling in, but given the fact that we have so much to go through, I'm going to go ahead and let him get started. But without further ado, Mr. Timberlake, that guy, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, look, first and foremost, I am always supportive of anything you guys have going on. You and the whole team at HubZone Council have been doing great work for a number of years. Excuse me. And anything I can do that helps you guys out and helps out the incredible companies that you're supporting around the country, I'm all in. So this is going to be fun for me today because I got my recharge. I was able to get out of the house last week and come see you all down in Chantilly. So I got my recharge, got all the energy from everyone in the room and at the conference. So I am psyched up. I'm good for at least a month, and then I'm gonna have to come out and do it again. So we'll talk about what our next activity is going to be, Michelle. But gang, here's what we're going to do. We have 2 sessions today. The first one is not going to take the allotted time. So we're going to have plenty of time. So if you want to hang out in between and ask me questions, I will stay on the entire time. And then when we start the second one, we're going to go hard and heavy. It's a lot more information. It's really going to be deep. So I look forward to engaging you with that. This first one is actually something, when I put the topic out there, a bunch of my friends in government were pretty excited to see me take this on. So there's not as many slides in this deck as I usually do, but there's going to be a lot of conversation we can have around this, giving you ideas on what to do with this information, how to get it, so that you can structure really solid plans for your company each year as it relates to growth in the federal sector. So this first one is all about agency goals, strategic plans, and a little website called Performance.gov. Now, I mentioned to Michelle, sorry, it's my morning frog trying to come out this morning. I mentioned to Michelle, I'm going to go off camera during the presentation so that you all can kind of focus on the content on the slides. We work really hard to put together useful, productive slides that are easy to follow along. So I'm going to let you guys focus on those instead of my mug, but I'm going to be right here. the whole time. Again, as you have questions coming up, feel free to put them into the Q&A, and then we'll go through those afterwards. But as you have them, pop them in there, and we'll make sure we don't miss anyone. Sound good? All right, guys, going off camera here. And we will get this show on the road. So just in case there are some folks out there that don't know me, my name is Go-To Guy Timberlake. I lead an organization called the GovCon Club. This is the rebirth, if you will, the second act for an organization that my wife and I started in 2004 called the American Small Business Coalition. GovCon Club literally is all the things we learned in 17 years about what to do and not what to do. And we're doing them now in the GovCon Club, even better than we did before. And we had a lot of great successes that our members realized as a result of what we did. This program I'm sharing with you today is part of a series that we do for our members internally. We do these every week within the GovCon Club, and they're free for all of our members. And it's called Do You Know Government Contracting? And we're literally asking the question, single topic, do you know what this is? Do you understand how this impacts you in the federal sector? And so you're going to get a chance to see this now. And I got to do the obligatory, hey, there's my mug, but more importantly, my contact information. Folks, feel free to reach out. We are a resource, just like Michelle is, and we try to be as productive and useful to the community as we can. Mind you, we are running a business, but we share a lot, and we're willing to share. If you drop us a note, we'll get back to you for sure. I also want to give kudos to my partner, Michelle Bull. She is a new member of the team 3 years ago. She joined. She is a former Govie, worked in the U.S. intelligence community. We actually worked there at the same time. She is a Govie, I as a contractor. Didn't know each other until about 15 years ago. Oh, by the way, this is my and Michelle's 33rd year in government contracting, specifically federal. Now, Michelle started when she was 16. I started when I was 23. You can do the math there. All right. But hey, here's the deal. This program is all about connecting the dots, as is almost everything we do. Why is that? Well, see, connecting the dots was a thing for me long before 9/11. I mentioned I did support my first 6 years in government contracting for the U.S. intelligence community. So that was a thing. That's what happened. After 9/11, on the heels of the anniversary, it became more mainstream. A lot more folks were using that phrase. But here's what it means, though. Connecting the dots is the ability to glean actionable intelligence from just seemingly random information. Dots. Well, those dots aren't always in the most visible places. And so in order to connect the dots, you have to be able to find them, and you need to be able to understand what they mean. We're going to give you both of those in this presentation and the next one. So let's get started. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of a website called Performance.gov. But the good news is it is a plethora of information. The bad news is it's not up right now because of the administration change, which happens every time an administration changes. They have to go back and make it their own, get up the, things like the PMA, President's Management Agenda, all the plans for the agencies. Now, the other good news is all the information that's normally there, you can still get to, and I'll talk about that on this program. But what Performance.gov is, I always joke about, I'm a BD capture guy, by training. And one of the things that we, the BD capture elite, so we think, are really, really good at is asking all the questions about how much money do you have, when are you going to spend it, And, can I sell you some more of those? What we're usually not great at asking is, why are you doing it? Why is it important to you? That's the kind of information you get from Performance.gov and the resources that feed this system. So to help you understand more about this, when you look at Performance.gov, you can just dive right into the FAQs. I'm not going to read this to you all the way through, but essentially what's on this site and what it leads to is information about agency strategic plans. Now, what is a strategic plan? Whether it's government or industry or even academia, it's basically your model. It's your business plan. It's the approach. It's the things that are important to you to implement and execute over a certain amount of time. If it's a 1-year plan, a 4-year plan, a 10-year plan, whatever it is, these are things you're going to do. Now, federal agencies have strategic plans. Every website for every agency, you can go to, probably the secretary or administrator's page and find that document. I always lean to the summaries because it's easier reading and it also gets more to the point. Then I use the full version if I want to really get down into the weeds in a certain area. Now, the strategic plans are also followed by what is called annual performance plans. These are, again, annual versus, in most cases, 4 or 5-year plans that are updated based on the budget. And so there's another element out there. These are all terms you guys want to start jotting down so you can go back and reference these. When you think about the cabinet agencies and the other large agencies out there that may not be cabinet level, they have what are called agency priority goals. These are 2-year goals, 24-month timeframes for near-term, highly focused activities. I'll give you some examples of those. But what they represent are a smaller number, as opposed to the strategic plan, a smaller number of very ambitious, very outcome-focused activities that really rely on super strong execution, as opposed to having to reach over to Congress to help them do stuff. It's really more internal. Now, there are progress reports that agencies also make available. All right. And those are the annual performance reports and performance and accountability reports. That tells you how they're doing. Why do you want to know all these things? Just wait. Finally, there's the one that touches multiple agencies, potentially the entire US government. These are called cross-agency priority goals. Now, all of these really stem from one primary document. And if you've never heard it before, it's called the PMA, or the President's Management Agenda. And it basically speaks to the government-wide mission, the top management priorities, all the above. When it's up and running and fully populated, all this information and more is found on Performance.gov. In fact, you can come here and dig into goals, see who the champions are for the goal. Could be an undersecretary or deputy associate administrator or performance improvement officer. It tells you all of that on this website. You can still get to it on the individual websites. One of the things that you want to be able to understand is how a lot of this work gets done. Because remember, not all of these goals are unique to one agency. A lot of these are multiple agencies or government-wide. So in order for them to do this work, to collaborate, government has set up a number of councils. These councils look like this. You've got the Chico Council, Chief Human Capital Officers. If you don't know what a Chico is, look into them. If you work in any way, shape, or form and are impacting people at agencies, whether they are appointees, employees, or FTEs, they are the responsibility of the Chico organization. That was a role created after 9/11. You've got the Chief Financial Officers Council. Again, if you are responsible for working on FMS systems in the government, or if you get paid by the government, hint, hint, you want to know what's going on there. Each of them has a website that you can go to and understand what they're doing. One of the big ones here at the top is the President's Management Council. Take a look there. Chief Operating Officers, Deputy Secretaries, Administrators, and the heads from GSA and OPM are part of this council. Their job as a council, oversee implementation of government reform initiatives and cross-agency priority goals or CAP goals. So they're overseeing some of these very important activities going on. Go look to the bottom. Here's the trick I want to share with everyone. I'm going to give you a free website to go take a look at. There's a thing called the Performance Improvement Council. Look what it says they do. First, it's made up of people whose title is Performance Improvement Officer. You ever heard of that before? Well, if not, go to LinkedIn and in quotes, type in Performance Improvement Officer in quotes, and look how many government agencies, DOD, VA, Army Corps, all the others will start showing up. These people are real, they exist. And what they do, they are responsible for facilitating performance management best practices through capacity building and knowledge sharing. How do you think they do capacity building and knowledge sharing? Well, in part by working with you, by bringing companies in that can help them do this. Training companies, executive coaches, all the above. If you folks have never heard of a contract called GSA HCATS, HCATS, type it into Google, it'll come right to the GSA page. That is a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar contract awarded to more than 100 large and small businesses for human capital and training solutions. What does that mean? One of the functional areas on this contract, besides training, is organizational performance improvement. In other words, hey, can you provide a product or service that helps our organization, our agency perform better? And if so, we're interested in talking to you about that. Guys, here's the trick. Literally everything that all of you are selling to the government is intended to help them perform better. You sell a special screw that secures the wheels to an MRAP or some other military vehicle, and it works better than the ones they're using now. That is a performance improvement. You increase efficiency, safety. Think about it. Everybody can play in the performance improvement world. So I urge you all to go and look at Performance Improvement Council website, Psc.gov, and learn who's on the council, which agencies, and what are the initiatives driving them, and use that with the rest of the information I'm going to share with you on how you can align your solution, your offering, to helping your customers and prospects improve performance. All right, that's the narrative that we're looking for. Now, let's talk a little bit more in depth about things like the president's management agenda. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to one of the websites for one of these councils you're looking at. I'm going to go to the CIO Council. That's the second one on the right there below the PMC. Here's what you're going to see. So on their website, along with everything else they've got going on, they talk about what is the PMA. So they're telling you right there, oops, sorry about that. The PMA lays out a long-term vision for modernizing the federal government in key areas to improve the ability of agencies to deliver mission outcomes. You want to hear a word that I will beat to death? Mission. You need to understand the mission of the organizations that you're trying to work with. Additionally, they want to provide excellent service. Who do they provide that service to? Well, agencies typically have one of three or all three personas. Some agencies are what we call government to government. They provide services to other agencies. Think about Treasury. That is, the shared service center for financial management systems, or OPM for human capital, things like that. And they provide best practices to other agencies in those areas. Some agencies are government to business, whether it's large corporations or small, but the things they do, think IRS, think even health service. There's so many out there that at least parts of what they do are focused on empowering and supporting corporate America, business in America, large and small. The third persona is what we call government to citizen. This is where you get direct services from a government agency. So you may not work with HHS directly. You might if you're working with NIH and you're participating in one of their labs or something like that. But a lot of times indirectly, you're getting support from HHS through your state or local health department. That's where the funding in part comes from. And so their strategic plans, the things that start within the PMA, trickle down to that level. So when you understand that, it helps you get a more clear view of how to approach the various organizations, agencies, federal, state, and local, and the companies that support them directly if you're a sub, or you directly as a prime. Now, take a look at some of the items below here. Some of the, the CAP goals that the CIO Council has listed on their site, it talks about modernizing IT to increase productivity and security, leveraging data as a strategic asset, or improving outcomes through federal IT spending transparency. How many of you guys, rhetorical question, are involved indirectly or directly in supporting IT programs in the government? And if you do, even if you don't think you do, you probably do, just so you know, one of those tools that they have created years ago for that one I just shared with you, improving outcomes through federal IT spending transparency, is a website called the IT Dashboard. You can see critical information about 7,000 IT investments across 26 federal agencies, including the name of the investment project or program manager. You're in BD, you, like me, are doing a happy dance when you see information like that. All right, let's keep moving forward. Let's talk about agency strategic plans. This is on the PIC website that I was sharing with you, Psc.gov. They're talking about what an agency strategic plan is. And in short, it's something that is either aligned or realigned at the beginning of each presidential term. So even if a president does 2 terms, they're going to come back and relook at all the ASPs. It defines the agency's mission, their long-term goals, their strategies, and the approaches that they're going to use to monitor progress in addressing specific national problems, needs, challenges, and mission-related opportunities. That whole phrase should resonate with everybody that's listening in right now, because ultimately, that's why if you are a vendor to the government, that is the information you need to make really good decisions. Look what they're showing you at the bottom. They're talking about things like process. Okay, what is the process that they use? How do they go about doing it? They talk about what content is in there. They also talk about implementation. How do we actually get things done? Then there's communication plans and so forth. I'll show you what a strategic plan looks like. Let's go pick on HHS for a minute. HHS has a current plan on their website right now, 2018 to 2022. So they're coming due to re-up their plan, because look what they tell you. Every 4 years, they update their strategic plan that describes its work to address complex, multifaceted, evolving health and human service issues. Now, you guys can read this. You're going to get the slides, but here's the deal. Look what it says down below. You get introduction, overview, 5 strategic goals. That's not it. Because what you want to do is you want to drill down. If any of those titles resonates with you, again, think about this. You want to go through this once or twice a year, aligned to when your company takes a pause to relook at its strategy on the year, and you incorporate this information to make sure you're heading in the right direction. So what you're looking at right now, let's say that reform, strengthen, and modernize the nation's healthcare system resonates with what your company does. Somehow, some way, whether through policy or governance or clinical activities, whatever it is, your company can contribute to that strategic goal. So I advise you, go in there, click on the link, and you're going to see information like this. Now you see the objectives within the goal. The objectives are more granular. The goal is huge. Reform, strengthen, and modernize the nation's healthcare system. But now you get into the objectives. Promote affordable healthcare while balancing spending on premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs. How are they going to do that? Well, you want to dig in, learn more. Look at the different objectives. They're getting granular, and they're going to very specifically tell you a few things: why they're doing it, why it's important. They'll tell you who's involved. Okay, who are the organizations, internal or external to the agency writing it, that are involved in this strategic plan? You got 3 optives right there for HHS. So you know automatically you're going to focus on them. The outcomes may impact all of HHS, but these are the champions. These are the drivers. So you're going to focus your initial attention there. They'll also share with you their strategies. They talk about what are some of the very specific things you're trying to do at this level. This is where you should be able to start connecting the dots on, yes, this is something we can speak to, and start devising your own plan. I want you to think about this for a minute. I just showed this to you. This is easy. You can go to, if you are focused on, and I'm going to say this, smart companies do this, are focused on 2 or 3 specific customers that you're working with. I don't mean departments. I mean like CMS or FDA or FEMA or someone like that. And even then, maybe just one specific office or program in that agency. you're not looking at information like this across the government. You're looking at a few very specific organizations. Why is that? You need to develop knowledge and intimacy so that you can understand and speak their language and look like you belong there. So when you are diving into strategy level information like this, if this is something your company is involved in, you will probably have at least an initial answer on how you can help them promote better coordination and efficiency in post-acute care. Because it'll resonate. Otherwise, you wouldn't be looking at this plan. So think about this inside of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, GSA, any other part of HHS, the military. This is the kind of information that if you are not ingesting this kind of information at least annually, we say twice a year, where you are getting away from the office, turning off phones, bringing your key people in, those in your organization, maybe even key partners, and talking about what is the trajectory you're going to take to engage here. Start developing more knowledge, relationships with folks in the government, customer side and buyer side. Develop relationships with other companies, primes or potential teaming partners. That's what strategy is all about. It's devising a plan so that there's a methodology, a logic to why you're going in a certain direction. When you look at things like the agency priority goals and the cross-agency priority goals, again, they're giving you incredible information to use. So when you think about agency priority goals, what is it? It is a specific challenging goal that can be accomplished in a 2-year period. Does anyone understand why 2 years is important? Think about it. All right, not a political conversation. It's just a fact. The presidential term is 4 years long. 2-year accomplishments are at that midpoint for any administration to say, hey, look what we've accomplished. So if you don't mind working high visibility spotlight kind of programs, start attacking agency priority goals because you will be in the limelight. There is no better way to get visible, to get noticed, than to start talking the talk about APGs. Take a look at some of the examples here. Department of Commerce, one of their agency priority goals already achieved. Improve the useful lead time of its weather forecast model guidance to 9.5 days, which will enable more accurate, consistent forecast and warnings for high impact and extreme weather events. Think about that. What services, what solutions did they develop and or acquire to achieve that agency priority goal? Look at VA. This was from FY17. Improve veterans' health outcomes and experiences by consolidating all VA purchase care programs into one modernized community care program. Do you think they did this purely on their own? Absolutely not. They brought in help. Large companies, small companies, academia, you name it. Whatever they had to do. These are where the opportunities begin. If you go look at the cross-agency goals, again, this is now not just limited to one agency. It could be one other, or it could be all other agencies. These are specific tools used to accelerate progress on a very limited number of priority areas where implementation requires active collaboration between multiple agencies. It can't get spelled out any better than that. So what does that mean? Stop for a second, think about this. If you are aligned to a cap goal, you now have automatically multiple customers. Why? Because there's multiple organizations involved in the achievement of that cap goal, which means that whatever your contribution is to helping them with this, you're going to have stakeholders in multiple agencies that will speak to you, that you can speak to, that you will have something in common with. Take a look at some of the examples here. Save taxpayers over $17 billion during the last 2 years through better pricing, reduced demand, and administration savings. Category management cap goal. If you don't know what category management is, definitely stick around for my next presentation, because we're going in to category management, but not for that reason, to help you understand why it's important to understand category management from the classification code side. Look at the next one. Enabled adoption of cost-effective technology solutions. 75% of civilian CFO Act agencies' inboxes use cloud-based solutions. IT modernization cap goal. Again, you're an IT company, you're working that space, whether you do training for them or solutioning or whatever, this is the kind of stuff you need to know about. This is the direction that your customers are moving in, so you should be moving in that direction too. So, all that said, success in the federal sector is driven by two primary attributes. One is knowledge. We just showed you some of the resources that you can get free access to study, to ingest, to incorporate into your battle plans so that you have more adequate knowledge to have the conversations you need. The second piece is relationships. By having this information, you know better who to speak to. One of the things that you will hear us, again, I'll say it, beat to death. Buyers and customers are two different people and two different organizations in the government. Most companies I know are highly focused on buyers. They want to get to the contracting officer. They're part of the ecosystem. But let me just say it this way. All the information I'm sharing with you right now related to goals, unless it is for a goal for procurement, they're not the ones writing these goals. Those are customers. They don't buy stuff, they plan stuff, they fund it, they submit requisitions. You need to understand how to delineate between buyer and customer, because if you're focused on buyer, you're always trailing behind in your opportunity knowledge. If you focus on customer also, you have an opportunity to get in front of opportunities. Using this information can very specifically provide you the ability to identify stakeholders in government and industry. It can help you understand planned requirements, and it will give you the time to develop those important relationships you need, government and industry. It will also provide you a more clear view of the origins of the opportunities developed from requirements. So my advice for all of you on using this information: one, select 2 to 3 primary customers. Doesn't mean you might want to have more, but where you're going to invest your time, your money, your people. is focused on specific customers that are your primary customer envelope, customer portfolio. And notice I'm saying customers, I'm not saying buyers. I would advise everyone to engage in at least semi-annual planning, at least twice a year, where you're incorporating information like this and even more. Michelle knows we talk about all sorts of things. We do trending on how agencies are buying, whether it's simplified acquisitions or P cards or GWACs or anything else. All of that combined with information like this is what gives you ultimately that very clear picture. Just as you can find information about plans, you can also find information about budget. That will codify what elements of the plan can be paid for. So you're not just shooting in the dark, you know they were funded to carry out this initiative. You can also use this early in the process to identify the gaps. Once you identify what the requirement is and you assess how that customer typically buys, do they combine it with multiple pieces, or do they just carve that piece out all by itself? That allows you to understand if there are gaps in what might be your final offer. And if so, then you find teammates to fill those gaps so that you've got a viable solution and a solid response. You want to pay special attention between the relationship of agency priorities and the requirements that you see. Over and above operational buys, we need more pencils. We need new water coolers. We need, pallets or bubble wrap or stuff like whatever they're doing, depending on the agency. There are what are called the mission buys that are very specific. You need to understand how to tie those in to the priorities so that you can speak that language very, very specifically. The most important thing is to actually do it. Take action. If this information has touched you in any way, shape, or form, and we're going to start Q&A up in just a second, start asking hard questions. You're never going to hurt my feelings or Michelle's, because if Michelle doesn't have the answer, she's going to reach out to her incredible network to get you the answer. I'm going to do the same thing. If I don't have the answer directly, I got a pretty decent network. I got folks that will answer questions in government and industry that will help us get those answers. That's what this is all about. So, Michelle, that's all I've got from the formal presentation. I'm going to come back on camera right now and happy to take questions from anyone.
Okay, does anybody have questions here yet today? You guys feel free if you want to be engaged. You're welcome to. Don't be shy. I know I'm kind of waiting for the next one because this one was, I know that you kept it easy on them. If we don't have questions, I mean, we can take a little bit of break to give you a break because I'm super eager about the next one.
Sure.
I know that we kept it a little bit more general here, but it's not going to happen on the next round. So again, guys, I'm going to give them a little bit of a break. So if you have a question, make sure you get it now. Otherwise, you're missing that opportunity. And, you don't get that much of a break, guy, because I'm very much looking forward to the next presentation.
Yeah,
So
and
if you guys want a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'm good to go. What I was going to say is, folks that are out there, I'm looking at everyone in the audience right now. I want you to think long and hard. Wherever you are in your business right now, if you are just getting started or you're long in the tooth, you got a lot of business already, pick one challenge that you are facing. And you can put in the Q&A and only Michelle and I will see it, or you can just put it in the chat. and I will answer it without naming you. We'll just do a general response, but I don't want you to feel scared or ashamed. There are no stupid questions here whatsoever, because if there were, I've asked them all over the years, believe me. And so this is an opportunity for you guys. If you think there's anything from this information that could potentially help you kind of sharpen your approach to finding and winning business, please ask up now.
I mean, I know I personally, like, a lot of the questions that I get from companies is, if they feel kind of resistant to, like, how do we approach the individuals? How do we figure out, like with the primes, how do we really break in? A lot of times primes are like, don't stalk us. But, where's that middle ground? And I'm sorry if I'm not articulating this really well.
No.
My coffee is completely kicked in.
So you're channeling your D2 right now, and I get it. And
yeah,
and I can tell you, I've known Diane Dempsey for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Rita Brooks is someone I've known less, but still know her. And they are some of the sharpest people in this business that I know. Where that no stalking comes from is because people do it without good information. They come and ask questions that quite literally they could answer on their own and then get better use, better value out of some of those engagements. And so think about it this way. If you call someone, what is the purpose of that call? If you call someone at a federal agency, contracting officer, end user customer, program manager, large company, why are you calling? Think about that for a second, be thoughtful. What is it you're trying to achieve? What is the outcome you're seeking? Well, if you have not done a little bit of homework to understand who that person is, as it relates to what question you're trying to get answered, you have no idea if they're the right person or not. If it's something that is even on their radar or important to them. So if you do this legwork initially and understand someone's role, their function, their connection to specific objectives for their organization, prime or agency, you can make better use of your time and theirs just by doing a little due diligence on the front end. So that's really what a lot of this is about. It's truly about just ensuring that we're doing as much on the front end. I'll tell you this, I just saw a note come up, so I'll take care of that in a second. You guys work with probably small business offices, government agencies, and prime contractors. I can show you 5 websites, 5 pieces of information right now that would eliminate the need for you to ask the majority of questions that most companies ask. You'll already have the answer. So why do you go to them? Validation. It's not to get the information, it's to validate what you know. So if you walk into Diane Dempsey's office, all right, and I'll tell you, she's tough, but she's fair. If you walk into her office and say, hey, Diane, I was doing some research. I saw that your company is doing this, this, and this, and the organization you're supporting is someone I have a lot of knowledge and experience with, and I think we could be a great fit in this area, on this CLIN, on that functional area of your contract. You've now stated a business case. You will get more of her attention on something like that. Same thing in the government. So, Michelle, I'm going to read this one question we just got. I've been learning about federal government for a few years now, struggling with what direction to go in. Should I focus on team or micro purchases and not bid since I have no past government experience? Not sure where to start with micro purchases, other than finding companies that have used my services and contacting their buyers. So let me say this first. So I can't give you a legitimate answer because I don't know what you do. So if you can put a little more information in there about what exactly your offering is, high level, and also where you are located. I will give you very specific information. But what I'm going to tell you is this. So understand what a micro purchase is. A micro purchase is a purchase by the government using simplified acquisition procedures where there's two things in common. One, it's paid with a micro or a GSA Smart Pay purchase card, right? So it's a credit card to us, but it's called a Smart Pay purchase card, and it's up to $10,000. The buyers that hold these cards are not all buyers. Some of them are buyers. Most of them are customers. There's, I think, 900,000 purchase cards in circulation today. Now, prior to 9/11, all agencies had those lists on their websites. After 9/11, they all went away. Some of them are back now, but that's not what you want to focus on. If you have offerings, you talk about branding, web development, and marketing. So you need to understand what those mean to the government. I can tell you, web development, pervasive in the government, marketing, incredibly pervasive. Think about, depending on the kind of marketing you do, if it's branding, advertising, if it's crisis communications, whatever it is. All right, think about public affairs offices, PAOs. Every agency has one. That's a target. But also think about the organizations in government that have major contract vehicles, like the SUIT program office at NASA or the NITAC office at NIH. They market to other agencies to get them to use their contract vehicles. Those are marketing opportunities. I have companies doing that work right now. And so where you are in Atlanta, that's my old home. I used to work there. It's where I retired out of, supporting the Army Reserve Command in Peachtree City years ago. So I will tell you, Fort McPherson, all the GSA buildings and the federal buildings right there, federal courthouse, that's your starting point. Then you got all the other government in commercial space. We have a program, Michelle, maybe we can tee this one up next time too, that talks about micro purchases and simplified acquisitions. The person you're looking for that is the center of your universe to get information in front of them is called an AOPC, an agency/organizational purchase card coordinator, AOPC. If you go onto LinkedIn and pull up an agency by location, let's say you pull up GSA, go to their company page on LinkedIn, and then filter the location to Atlanta, and then do a keyword search in those results of all those people using purchase card in parentheses or in quotes, you will find purchase card holders and purchase card coordinators. You don't want to start sending them invites. You want to find a way to call or email them, or send an in-mail, not an invite, an in-mail, asking if you can reach out to them directly to share information, capability statement that those AOPCs can in turn share with all the card holders that they manage at that agency. So that's one way to start doing it. But here's what I would tell you. Depending on what your offering is, we're doing a masterclass later today called Define Your Offering, as a matter of fact. And if you have aligned what you sell, and the next program we're doing at 10:30 is one you want to be on, because this will help you understand what I'm talking about right now. If you understand what the government calls what you sell, I don't mean by name, I mean by classification number, and it's not a NAICS code. You can use that to find out who's buying what you sell across government or in a certain location, and then see how they're buying it. If it's simplified acquisition, that's great, because that's geared to small business, and that's where you would start. So what I would tell you high level, if you have put together your offering, if you have validated a use case for what you do and how you do it to certain organizations, DoD, civilian or otherwise, then at the very highest level, I would start having conversations with small business office. I would identify the buyers that buy what you sell. Again, my next presentation will show you actually how to find buyers based on what you sell. And then also start looking at the people in an agency. So again, same trick, LinkedIn, company page of a federal agency, filter by location, and then put in words like marketing, branding, communications, and you will find the people in those agencies that are likely the customers, not the buyers, the customers, who you could then have conversations with specifically about what they do, what you do, and where there's a connection there. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. But like I said, I would absolutely stay on for the next presentation. Michelle said we're going in the weeds on this one, but it's going to be a lot of good information with a lot of actionable takeaways for everyone.
So what I'm hearing is that we're going to give everybody like a little bit of a pee break, and by everyone, I mean like me, because I kind of do, and I didn't want to miss anything. So just a couple minutes, but so don't go anywhere, guys. Just grab some coffee, or if you need a notepad or you need to go to the bathroom, and we'll be right back. Okay.
Awesome. Hey, Michelle, you ready?
Of course I am. So whenever you are ready, feel free. I'll make sure we don't have anything else going on in here.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Hey,
Okay.
real quick, everyone in the audience, just with the hand raise feature, how many of you all are familiar with NAICS codes?
I feel like people are not very obviously I'm familiar with NAICS codes, but I feel like after we do this, I'm gonna feel real stupid. I feel it's a trick question, so I don't blame people for raising their hands because they don't want to get trapped and be like, oh crap, never mind. No idea.
So, all right, so I see a few hands up. There we go. There's a few more
Oh, you
coming
can see
up.
that? Where am I not seeing it? Oh, I see it. I get it. Okay. Apparently I don't know how to zoom on myself. Okay.
That's all right. That's okay. So real quick, so everyone, all right, awesome. Thanks, Jason. So everyone's ready. I see the hands going up. So here's the deal. Real quick, I'm going to lower all the hands. All right. My other question is, of everyone in the room, I know Shirley, so I understand that, but I know she's also involved. How many of you are either already involved in selling to the federal government or are building a case to start selling to the federal government? Just give me a hand raise again. Either already selling to the government or planning to. All right, got it. Okay. Gang, this is going to be a very, very specific conversation. I like to be a nice guy. Michelle will tell you, but I'm going to let you all know I'm about to ruin NAICS codes for you in a big way. And it's all good. And so I like to tell stories while I'm doing my presentations. Again, I've been doing this for about 3 decades. So I have a lot to share with you from actually having done all these things before. But I'm going to point out a couple of things during the course of this, like the fact that, I started in 1988 and NAICS codes didn't exist for the first 10 years of my life in federal contracting. I'm going to bring up things like that so that you understand where I'm coming from as I say these things. The other part is I also have a lot of friends who are acquisition professionals in government. Some of them used to be my customers. Now they're just friends of mine. We hang out, drink beer, play sports, things like that. I have been studying under contracting and acquisition professionals for almost 2 decades and learning things. I literally could go out and get my DIWEA level 1, possibly level 2 certification right now. I never want to be a contracting officer because that's a thankless, it's like being a referee in soccer or football. It's a thankless job, but it's an important job. But I'm going to help you also understand the difference in this information. So I would urge all of you, I know we're doing the recording. Everyone here, even if you are a crappy note taker like me, take some notes, take screenshots if you need to, whatever you got to do, do it. This is something you can put in play today, that you will see results today from doing the things I'm about to share with you. So I'm going to go off camera again so you guys can take in my beautiful slides, and then I'll come back on afterwards and we'll talk. Sound good? All right, here we go, Michelle. Guys, I'm going to skip over some of the obligatory slides here in just a second, but the name of this program is Do You Know Federal Contracting Classification Codes? This is all about NAICS codes in part. Now, you already know who we are. We are the GovCon Club. And this is part of our Do You Know Government Contracting program. And again, my information and my partner, Michelle Bull. And again, it's all about connecting the dots. But I want to have a conversation with all of you right now about this. NAICS codes. Here's the challenge. NAICS codes are just misunderstood by a lot of people, government and industry. I'm putting it out there. I'm an equal opportunity finger pointer in this one because I've done it too. So I've been guilty of it. But it is misunderstood and it is misused. All right. Sometimes unintentionally, sometimes maliciously. But let me start by telling the story this way. There are a ton of classification systems used by the US government to tell you what stuff is and what it means. NAICS codes is one of them. All right, anyone that has a GSA schedule, you might know the term SIN or special item number. That is a classification system the government uses to tell you essentially what offering area your schedule is tied to. If you work in financial management systems, you might have heard the term Object Class Code or OCC. That is a classification system. Real quick, show of hands. How many of you have ever seen a contract number from the US government before? Like an awarded contract, and you see the contract number, you know, it's like 13 digits long, that kind of thing. How many of you guys have seen those numbers before? All right, so a few of you. So here's one of the things I'm going to share with you. That number is a classification system. In fact, it's like 4 classification systems. Because if you look at that number, you've got 13 digits. The first 6 characters. So if we're talking about, you know, a GSA schedule prior to 3 years ago, it would have looked something like GS 35F, 10, so 1, and then it'll say something like 20, and then it'll be a letter like an A or an F or a D, and there'll be 4 more digits. That's a code. The first 6 characters are what are known as a DODAC. It's the identifier for the contracting office that issued that contract, down to their street address. You show me a DODAC, I can tell you where they're located and who's in the building. The next 2 numbers are the last 2 digits of the fiscal year. The next letter is the type of contract they used. And then the last 4 are the serial number of that transaction. Classification systems are everywhere. But if we've never been told why they're important and what they do, we have no reason to pay attention to them. That is the case with this presentation. So NAICS codes, everybody knows them. Everybody talks about it. You go see a PTAC, they'll tell you about NAICS codes. You go see an OSDBU or an OSBP, they'll tell you about NAICS codes. Talk to a contracting officer, they'll tell you about NAICS codes. Talk to Guy Timberlake, I'll tell you why to run away from NAICS codes. Here's why. First and foremost, NAICS codes were not created by the US government or for government contracting. All right, they're managed by an organization called the NAICS Association, NAICS.com. All right, this is pretty much, who runs the show. Now, these are developed by 3 different countries who created this system, the US being one of them. But it's not for how it's used today or for what most people in contracting think it means. So what I want you to pay attention to is this. A NAICS code, what is it? It's a 6-digit classification system. 541330, engineering services. 541519, other computer-related services. 238310, electrical contractors, on down the line. I can do it all day long. Remember, I've been doing this a long time, so I've memorized a lot and used a lot of these. So every NAICS code has 6 digits. Now, originally, this was a 4-digit system called Psc Codes, Standard Industrial Classification. That began back in the 1930s. And it was used to classify establishments like yours by the type of activity that they were involved in. The program was revised in 1993 by the Office of Management and Budget. And at that time, the NAICS system was then developed for use by federal statistical agencies. Read that. Federal statistical agencies for the collection, analysis, and publication of statistical data related to the U.S. economy. In 1997, it was adopted by the U.S. government to replace the SIC system. It wasn't SIC, that was just its name, and done in cooperation with Canada and Mexico. So these 3 countries have this joint system that they use. Now, while NAICS codes are 6 digits long, they start with 2 characters, all right, 2 numbers. Those 2 numbers tell you what's called the industry sector. So of the 1,200 NAICS codes referenced by the U.S. government last fiscal year, when they spent just about $700 billion, they all came from these 20 groups. So everyone take a look at this real quick and jot down the sectors that relate to your company. You know, our friend that talked about branding, web development, and marketing, based on that, you're going to fall into a couple categories. One will probably be the 5-4, professional, scientific, and technical services. And you'll have NAICS codes in there that relate to the work you do. And then 5-6 for administrative and support. Pay no attention to the waste management and remediation. That's just part of it, but it's about administrative services. You'll probably fit in there too. There might be a couple others, but those will be 2 of the primary ones. Anyone else in here? You work in construction, 2-3, but also some others. So I want you to pay attention as we go along. Here's how those numbers break down. Just like I told you about, the contract number is broken down into elements. Well, the NAICS codes do the same thing. So the first 2 digits of a NAICS code represent the industry sector. It used to be only 10 when they were SIC codes. Now it's 20 as NAICS codes. So again, every penny the U.S. government spends will be classified by a 6-digit number pulled from one of these 20 groups. When you add a 3rd digit, it tells you the subsector of the industry. A 4th digit tells you the group of that industry, the specific industry group. And then 5 and 6 digits tells you the industry. Now, what I want you guys to pay attention to is this. It says industry, 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 and industry. There are a lot of people in government contracting that believe NAICS codes are talking about what the government is buying, but they're not. They're talking about the industry that you work in. In short, the government is selecting an industry it wants to have do the work for the various requirements. Now, if I haven't caught your attention yet, this is all leading into something big that I'm going to play out for you on this program. Now, what all NAICS codes have in common is what is called a size standard. By the way, this is the only reason that any of us truly pays attention to NAICS codes. It's a size standard. It's a number of employees if we work in industrial manufacturing or agricultural, or it's receipts, annual receipts. If we work in sales, services, retail, things like that. There is no one size fits all. It doesn't matter what NAICS code you put on SAM.gov. There is really no correlation between that and what the contracting officer picks for an upcoming requirement. So just because you're small under your primary, you may not be small when the government comes out to buy something you sell. And that's the part that a lot of people get confused about. Size standards are managed and established by the SBA administrator. Their Office of Size Standards makes recommendations based on the economy, and those size standards will change every few years. There was just an update done not even a year ago that increased the size standards for several of these NAICS codes. Now, one of the other points of confusion and contention is how contracting officers select NAICS codes. There is a belief that they choose a size standard and then choose a NAICS code, or that they choose a NAICS code with a certain size standard to determine how they're going to buy. That is not the case. If you go into the FAR Part 19, all right, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, this is the guidebook for government agencies on how they apply the rules of acquisition and procurement. So when the contracting officer determines the appropriate NAICS code for a solicitation, right there in bright yellow, they determine the appropriate NAICS code by classifying the product or service being acquired in the one industry that best describes why they're going to use that product or service. All right. I know that's clunky and confusing. Here's an easy way of understanding it. The industry the government determines is best suited to do the work that they need to have done is the industry they're going to pick. It's related to what they're buying, but it does not describe what they're buying. Take a look at the very bottom in bold. A procurement is usually classified according to the component that accounts for the greatest percentage of contract value. There's another classification code that goes on every purchase in addition to the NAICS code, and that's what that line is referring to. So I want you to pay attention to all the underscores and the bolds that I'm doing around the word industry. I'm trying to drive a point home so you understand, because when you go out and do your searches on contract opportunities, the old FedBizOpps or GovWin or Bloomberg, and you're leading it with NAICS codes, you're working way too hard and not efficient whatsoever. And I'm going to prove it to you before we're done. So, you're saying, okay, well, Guy, we hear what you're saying. So then what the heck is the use of an NAICS code? Why do I need to know it? Well, if you're interested in things like the jobs report, comes out from Department of Commerce, every so often, That's what NAICS codes are used for. If you're interested in or SBA and their scorecard they put out every year about the performance of agencies, that's what NAICS codes are used for. By the way, their methodology is incorrect. All right. And the reason why is what I'm going to show you in a minute. The industry that they reflect here does not actually represent the industries actually doing the work. And I'll show you why in a few minutes. So here's the deal. What I'm basically telling you is if you are leading your market research efforts based primarily or solely on a NAICS code as a leading indicator, well, you're effectively throwing your money away. All right? Don't get me wrong. You can win business this way. I've done it. Lots of people do it. But you're working way too hard. So if you ever run into one of my students from our ethical stalking for government contractors bootcamp complete program, I'm letting you know they're going to ghost you. All right, hands down. Because we have taught them and trained them how to be more efficient. And what I mean by that is think about the journey from finding a piece of business to winning a piece of business as riding in a cab. And the cost associated with going from point A to point B as your cab fare, right? That's what we call it. This is one of my students, by the way, that will be ghosting you on an upcoming opportunity. My friend Lisa Nelson drew this for me after one of our boot camps because this was the analogy we always reference. Cab fare is the cost of acquiring business. If I can get my cost overall, time and money, to be lower than yours and can get answers to important questions sooner than you, I have an inherent competitive edge. Because by the time you get there to where you want to be to bid on this, your cost, you will have spent more money. And if you're trying to make the same profit that you would have made the other way, you're going to be priced out of the competitive range. And I'm going to win. I mean, that's just, it's played out 1,000 times. We see it all the time. And so now I want to tell you a little story about why NAICS codes are less important to you from a market research standpoint. And it starts with telling you the story about the two acquisition initiatives in play today by the US government. The first one, started by DoD back in 2010, is called, still in use today, Better Buying Power Initiative. And the whole goal here was getting the government, DoD, to be more effective for the warfighter. So they had created this initiative and they created 16 categories to represent the products and services that they're going to buy. And it worked. It's been in play all this time, still in use today. Well, GSA started going down the same path, and they're going to create one that is government-wide. And I mentioned this in the last presentation. It's called category management. Now, category management has its problems. It is not as nice to small business as people would like to think it is, but we can overcome that. But like DoD, GSA created 19 categories that actually incorporated the ones that DoD had created also. And those 19 categories represent the products and services that government will buy. So here's the common theme. They created these 19 categories, and then they identified everything in there that they're going to buy. Now, here's the trick. I'm just going to say it. If you don't know this, these are two of the most important acquisition strategies ever created in government contracting. Both still in use today. When you sell something to the government, you are operating within one of these methodologies. You want to get an idea what it looks like? Here's what it looks like right now. This is the year-to-date spend by the US government. All right, so you look in the upper right corner, you see the date there already, September 13th, and it's $432 billion collectively. Now, here's what you're not seeing on here. Department of Defense, because of its inherent mission, does not display its spending dollars to the public until 90 days in arrears. What does that mean? What you're seeing right now, if you go to USA Spending or FPDS, is 90 days old. So that 432 billion is what we're allowed to see right now. Just understand there's another 100 billion plus that we're not seeing from DOD. That we won't see that final total until December 31st. But here's what you're looking at. So those categories I was just telling you about, the 19 established by category management, if you look at the top section there, where it's called government-wide common spend categories, $288.2 billion. Those are the 10 government-wide spend categories. Every agency spends money in those categories. Facilities and construction, office management, professional services, security and protection, IT, medical, unit. Every agency is in the pool. So that accounts for 288 billion of that $432 billion spend. Below that second dark blue line, what we have are the defense centric categories. These are the things that are primarily geared for DOD, maybe law enforcement agencies. What does that mean? We don't really want SBA or HUD dipping down here to buy some Tomahawk missiles. That would just not be a good thing. You know, my friend Natalie Rosa, who's going to be talking in a little bit, you know, in the other room, who works for now for DOT. I love her to death. I do not want her having a thermonuclear device. It would just not be pretty. But all jokes aside, though, what you're seeing right here is a breakdown of the top spends in each of those 19 categories. Everybody on this call should be able to identify one or more of these spend categories where they have relevance. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be more than one. Don't care what you sell, more than one. I'm going to give you another way to look at this without the dollars associated with it. It's a tool that you can visit online right now, run by DOD, called the Psc Selection Tool. The website is psctool.us. And what it does is it breaks down the 19 category management categories and the 16 better buying power categories into a very easily discernible format so you can go see what's happening in there. Let's say we want to talk about professional services. Well, if I sell professional services and drill down into that category, I will see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 subcategories under that. Business administration services, legal, management advisory, marketing and distribution. All right. And within those subcategories are a total of 149 product service codes that the government tells you when they buy that thing, this is what they're going to call it. So if you see those blue boxes there and it has 4 characters in it, those are not SIC codes. Those are product service codes. What DOD and GSA have done to the 2 most important category or acquisition strategies in government, they have planted the flag to tell you that the product service code is how they describe what they are buying. Otherwise, this website would be called the NAICS Selection Tool, but it's not. So what I'm literally telling you all right now, NAICS codes, as far as market research is concerned, throw them out the window. All right, you'll come back to them later. But for this You don't need them. And I'm far from done. So here's the deal. Let's say you work in facility related services and you click on that category. Well, you'll see that includes things like architect and engineering services, purchases and leases. So if you're a real estate broker, you want to look here, natural resource management, housekeeping and social services, operation of government-owned facilities, you name it. It's all in here. There are 500 product service codes listed in this category. If you go into the subcategories, you'll see the ones that matter to you there. So here's the deal. Remember I told you guys I started in 1988 and that NAICS codes didn't come around for 10 years? Well, check it out. Product service codes were created by the US government and they were created in the 1970s. So they're 20 years older than NAICS codes. And they're still in use. And by the way, I mentioned that there were 1,200 NAICS codes referenced last year. There were 3,000 product service codes referenced last year when the US government spent $700 billion. Collectively, there are actually 5,000 plus 4-digit Psc codes in existence representing 3 categories: goods, services, and research and development. So whatever you sell, if it's a product or a service, or it can be called R&D, they're talking about you here in these codes. So here's the deal. Anyone here that sells products and sells it to the DoD, you might have heard of a term called a national stock number, also called a NATO stock number. It's a 13-digit code. Well, the first 4 digits of an NSN is a Psc code. Literally, they're telling you this is what we're buying. It conveys to services and R&D also. Now, you can go get this information right now. If you guys go to acquisition.gov, it's the US government's primary resource of anything acquisition. And you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see a link there for the Psc Code Manual. And the manual is used to describe, again, all the things that are purchased by the government. One of the things you'll see in there on about the 5th page is this. These codes indicate what was bought for each contract action reported in FPDS. So hopefully you guys are hearing me loud and clear. NAICS codes is not what agencies are buying. It's product service codes. And remember how there were 20 categories for NAICS codes, 20 industry sectors? Yeah. This is Psc codes. They are much deeper, much more granular. When you look at the first 2 columns and the top of the 3rd one, those 2 digits there represent a product group. So everything in there, when fully populated, will have 4 numbers. That is a specific product the government is buying. Over on the right side here, what you'll see are services groups. There are 24 of them. So again, just services alone, there's more of these than there are NAICS code groups. There's only 20 of those. So my point being is product service codes are much more granular. It will get you. So if you've ever struggled with doing a search for something and put in your favorite NAICS code and got a bunch of results back that were just kind of like, what are they thinking? This is why. Here, let me show you. Hopefully everyone knows what this website is, sam.gov. We're going to go to a very specific place on here. we're going to go to contract opportunities. And when you go there, you guys can follow along if you want. If you've got a second screen or second device you want to follow along, feel free, because I'll go slow enough that you can do what I'm about to do with me. When you go to sam.gov, you don't even need to log in. Go to sam.gov and then click on the main screen at the top where it says contract opportunities. It'll bring you to this page. Once you're on this page, what you want to do right above that magnifying glass is click where it says advanced search. That'll bring you to this page. This is where you can actually go in and very specifically tell the system exactly what you want it to do. So here's the trick, okay? I'm going to do a quick search using a NAICS code just to prove my point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put in a date. I'm going to say I want to see any opportunities that are due next week or next month. I'm going to go and tell it I want to see only the stuff that is coming out on a combined synopsis solicitation. That's a speed buy in the government, usually a simplified acquisition. They're foregoing the normal 15-day waiting period and just saying, hey, we want to buy this. Let's go. And then I'm going to put in a NAICS code as my primary criteria for the search. The minute I do that, I'm going to get results just like this. Now, here's what I did. I did the search based on, again, combined synopsis solicitation. When I first created this report, the date said, show me things due next week. So if you look at the dates on here, it says like August 11th, August 9th. So I just made this. And then look at the NAICS code I put in, 541611. It is widely used across government. Almost every company I know gets work under that NAICS code at some point. Even construction companies, believe it or not. So here's the deal. I got 5 records on the screen. These are all, at the time, live solicitations, not special notices, not market surveys, live buys the U.S. government is doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go click on the title of the first record, International Support Services, because that doesn't tell me if that's what I do or not. So I want to drill in and read a little bit more. And once I get in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on a button in the top left corner called classification. Now, I'm doing this in addition to reading what the statement of work says or the list of materials is, but I'm going to click classification because it's going to tell me 4 very specific things. It's going to tell me whether or not this is a set aside. It's going to tell me the product service code. It's going to tell me the NAICS code that I entered. So that will be the same on all 5 records. And then it'll tell me the place for performance. So R499, support professional other. Well, yeah, I can work in that area. If I go read the scope of work, I find out, yes, this is something I do. So what did I just do? I just validated that this is a PSC code that I should be looking in. Now, it also tells me that this NAICS code is a good fit too. So I'm okay there, but I'll just say for now. Because then when I go back and look at the next record and click on WPS Analyst, FY21, and click on classification, what I find out is it started as a set aside, but it's no longer. But it's got a different product service code. It's saying special studies, analysis, educational. That doesn't sound like the kind of work I do. I'll go in and read the summary and find out, yeah, it's not. So right now I am 1 for 1. Found one opportunity that was good, one that wasn't. So I'm going to go back to the next one and do the same thing. Click on the title, go to classification, and I see R499 as the PSC code again. Go read the scope of work, and yeah, this is something I can support. Maybe I'll bring a teaming partner on too. So now I'm 2 for 3. Those are pretty good odds. Now, if I go look at the next one, well, if you look at the title of the next one, the Psc code is right there in the title. So I already know it's not one I'm familiar with. So I'll click on classification and then I'll go read the work that they're looking for, and it's not a fit for me. So now I'm 2 out of 4. I go to the last one, Louisiana Medical Services. I don't really play in that space, but I'm going to read it anyway. And this one's got another different Psc code, R799. I go read the work. Guess what? It's not what I do. Well, what I just showed all of you is a scenario that plays out across government contracting every day in this system, in BGov, in GovWin, in FedMine, you name it. Companies are going in leading with that NAICS code because that's what somebody told them, government or otherwise. But what we just found out is, based on this NAICS code, only 2 of the 5 results were really pertinent to me. How efficient is that? So my cab fare has increased because I did not do effective, efficient searching. Now, let me tell you about how this plays out more and more. Let's say I work in construction. I'm an electrical contractor. So it would seem logical that the NAICS code 238210 would fit my company. It says electrical contractors and other wiring installation contractors. Gang, here's a question. It's a trick question, but I want you to play along for me anyway. How many of you think that when the US government references this NAICS code, that they are buying product? If you think yes, raise your hand. If you think no, just services, raise your hand. Come on, folks, play along. We're not shaming anyone here. Just give me your honest answer. It's whatever your gut tells you. Who thinks that they are only buying services when they use that NAICS code? All right, well, guys, check this out. For FY21, year to date, I did a search looking only at initial award. So I didn't include all the plus ups and option years and add-ons. I just looked at the first award because all I wanted to really do was count the number of product service codes referenced underneath this NAICS code. But even doing that, what I found out, there's 218 million spent year to date. Now remember, that doesn't include 90 days of DOD. So it's going to be a lot bigger number when it's all said and done. And when I add in all the other options and mods, it'll get even bigger. Well, underneath this one NAICS code, 238210, electrical contractors, there were 278 referenced product service codes. 72 of them represented products, $17.5 million worth of products. So think about it. If you're a services company and you're searching on that NAICS code, that was at least 72 different opportunities that you would have had to have filtered through over the course of whatever time period just to get to the kind of stuff you do. But we're not done yet because it gets worse. Let's say that you truly are an electrical contractor. This is what you do. I can tell you that if you look at that list on the right in the green box, I can tell you 4 of those groups represent what you do. Okay? So if you look at J, K, X, and Y, all of those would be product service code service groups where you would see electrical contractor work going on. So that's all fine and good until you see that they purchased from 20 out of 24 of these groups under that NAICS code. That means medical services, modification of equipment, architect, engineering, construction, all the above. So again, it's about efficiency. It's about getting to the heart of the matter to keep your cost down. Here's another example. Let's take a look at NAICS code 541611, administrative management and general management consulting services. Same question. Who believes that the government is only buying services under this NAICS code? Give me a show of hands. All right. Who believes that there's products in here? Show of hands. If you believe there are products being purchased under this NAICS code, just raise your hands. Okay. So guys, here's the deal. FY21 year to date, when the fiscal year ends in just a couple of weeks, then it becomes FY22. U.S. government under this NAICS code has already spent $3 billion. That does not include 90 days of DOD. This is one of the biggest ones every year, just so you know. Underneath this code, there are 203 unique product service codes. 23 of them accounted for 6.4 million in product spending. Now, generally, when you think about administrative management services, you probably live in the area of, let's call it R, professional administrative management support, maybe D, things like that. Well, guess what? They referenced all but 2 of those groups that you're looking at in that blue box. I'm sorry, green box. I'm not colorblind. All but 2 of those groups in there were referenced in that $3 billion spend. So part of the story is this. If you currently lead your search efforts with a NAICS code, all you're seeing is the work relegated to that NAICS code. So right now we have $3 billion under 541611. I will bet anybody a steak dinner. I'm a Tower Club member. If I am wrong and you want to prove me wrong, I will take you to dinner at Tower Club. I'm buying drinks and all. I bet you if you go in and pull the top product service code that used under here, it will account for at least or more than that $3 billion. Why? Because it'll be referenced against 40 or 50 other NAICS codes. That's the part you're missing when you search on a NAICS code. So here's the last one. So I'm going to take a look this time at IT. Information technology, 541519. Other computer-related services. This one's a big one. Year to date, initial award only, $6.8 billion. Again, 90 days of DOD not there. All the other plus-ups and modifications not included. So this is just the initial award number. This gets into double digits, just so you know. Well in the double digits. 351 unique product service codes under this. Now, the question is, if you see this, what do you think the government's buying? I see other computer-related services. I'm thinking IT. But it's not. They're using an IT industry to support an IT mission. And sometimes that might mean training that's not necessarily IT. Think about, when an agency buys a new system, they've got to train people in new processes to use, not necessarily tied to that system. That's coaching. Think about it. So when you look at this, what you'll see is 3.4 billion of that spend, other computer-related services, is products. Products. And all but 2 of the service groups on the right were referenced. The ones we expect to see referenced under IT are D, U, and R. But the government went nuts. Hopefully, I am getting this to sink in for you guys on how you want to change how you look at things. But let me just put it out there, just in case you guys are questioning my credibility. You think I'm a little cray-cray for going nuts on Psc codes? Let me tell you, I always come with backup. You'll get to know that about me. DoD is the leader across the board in everything. Where DoD goes, the rest of the government follows. If you've never heard that before, I'll take credit for introducing it to you. DoD has a document you can download from their website right now. Doing business with the Department of Defense. You're giving you 5 steps on how to do that. Step 1, identify your product or service. They go further. Know the product service codes and the North American Industry Classification System codes. So you can identify your products, services, or the industry in which your organization does business. If NAICS codes were more important, NAICS codes would be first, and that website I showed you would be called the NAICS Selection Tool. It is not. Psc codes are how you can very quickly, right now, change your game on finding viable business opportunities, finding partners, finding customers, all the above. It's that simple. So let's talk about how you should use this information. First things first, you want to start by identifying the Psc codes relevant to your company. If you have sold to the government before above the micro purchase threshold to one of the many agencies that reports to FPDS, go look your company up by DUNS number. In FPDS, every transaction you have will have a product service code attached to it. That's what they bought. If you don't have contracts yet, go look at a partner company's history or a competitor's or potential primes. You can also go into contract opportunities, just like I showed you, and do a keyword search and look for those opportunities that align to what you do, and then capture those Psc codes. By the way, did you know that there is space in your SAM profile for product service codes? If it's empty, here's what that means. When the US government comes to look for you, based on what they want to buy, if all you have are NAICS codes, you are invisible to them. They won't find you. I've had that told to me by a handful of contracting officers in government today working on doing these buys. Identify the Psc codes relevant to you and then correlate those with the Psc codes that are relevant to your customers. They may be different. You might use, if you're in construction, you might use one code at HHS, but then another Psc code from the same family for DoD. That's okay. It's all subject to interpretation for them. Know which ones your customers are using. We have an FPDS course. We can show you folks how to do these things. All right, it's what we do. Also recognize the codes used by your partners and your competitors. Once you identify those codes, update your SAM profile so that you are more visible. Take the information, take the tactics we've talked about, and refine the tactics you're using. This is about being efficient and getting better outcomes. And again, you got to take action. It's great for me to come up here and jack my jaws and talk to you about it and sound interesting and fascinating. But if you don't do it, it doesn't make a difference. So gang, again, that's what I've got for you for today. I will come back on camera. And again, folks, if you've got questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A or in the text box, and let me know how we can help. So what did you guys think? Was this interesting, helpful, useful?
Let me see here. Sorry about that. With
That's all right.
multitasking over here, full disclosure, I had to jump off, and I'm really glad this is recorded because I get to miss a whole lot of stuff. So with that said, hold up one second, because I'm going to turn this other one down here for a minute.
Okay.
Guys. All right. So we do have a question that came in. Oh, Shirley said absolutely helpful. So with that, now that she's just sending it to directly. So do we have any individuals, like now that we have Guy here, like honestly, if you guys aren't going to ask questions, I'm going to. So he's always been my simplified acquisition guru. And I am very, very sorry if at any point in time that I asked a question that you might have covered, because I had to jump off and do all of this, but I am constantly like, again, I'm opening it up. Everybody's okay with me like diverting to a different conversation, because I know this is supposed to be about NAICS codes, but I have been getting just inundated with questions about simplified acquisitions, where people should be looking at them, what agency, and honestly, even just tell them, I was like, listen, I am not the one. They were like, it's the end of the fiscal year. Who's actually going to be looking for this stuff? If it is, then, and I apologize, I know this is completely diverting, and Guy, please be like, Michelle, I didn't come to talk about this.
Nope, you're fine.
But,
you're fine.
Okay, so with that said, can you just pinpoint on that, because I'm just getting killed with these questions. Oh,
Well,
wait, before I divert you,
let me
somebody
address this
did have a
real
question.
quick. So supposedly, I love this question.
Okay.
Jonathan, all right, here's the deal. That number is wrong on so many levels. It's more like 60% are released on SAM. You can go look right now in FPDS and validate almost every opportunity coming out of government. Basically, one originates with a solicitation on SAM. So 10% is absolutely incorrect. The other part is Psc codes are used, they are mandatory for every agency, regardless of how they buy. The only ones that we cannot track are micro purchases, because they're not reported into SAM. And by the way, GWACs, IDIQs, just so you know, 50% of the fiscal spend every year does not go to an established contract vehicle. All right, only 23% of the fiscal spend this year and last year is actually awarded to a multiple award contract. That means schedules, multiple award BPAs, multiple award BOAs, GWACs, and multiple award IDIQs. The number one way the U.S. government makes awards is to what's called a standalone contract vehicle, means not a contract vehicle, or to single award contract vehicles. Number one, IDC. If you don't know what an IDC is, it is the group that includes IDIQs. IDIQs are one of three types of IDCs. Indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity is one. Indefinite delivery, definite quantity is two. Indefinite delivery requirements is three. Collectively, those awards, single awards, account for basically 75% of contract vehicle awards. So hopefully that helps you some. But yeah, one, don't dismiss SAM, but I will tell you, I never used it when it was FBO or anything like that, because I always worked with end users and not buyers. Buyers are who I went to get a contract signed, right, to do my response. But I spent my time working ahead of the opportunity. So I would tell you, everyone, divert your eyes to what's happening in the 6 to 14 months before contracting is ever brought to the table.
So, but the point, I understand where Jonathan's coming from when you made the comment, 23%. Okay, so 23% is going through those vehicles. Is there any breakdown of the distinguishing factor of those contracting vehicles? How much of that percentage is making up the small business spending? Because that's
Absolutely,
where,
all day long. Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah, most of it is outside of those vehicles.
okay,
Yeah, more money to small business comes from outside of now the big contracts, best in class contracts. Yeah, the more
but does that
money is
encompass
coming.
the GSA schedules?
GSA schedules. Well, see, all right. So here's the deal.
So I don't
People
mean
have
like
a
the Oasis and stuff like that. I don't mean
Yeah,
like
that's
those
not a
big, but I
schedule,
mean
right?
like
That's,
GSA.
Oasis is not a schedule, so neither is Alliant or Star.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the multiple award schedules, there's actually two programs. There's GSA and VA. Those are both scheduled programs. GSA delegated authority to VA for the medical schedules program. All right, so there's two schedules. Collectively, both schedules programs account for less than 10% of the overall fiscal spend.
Okay.
All right, so $50 billion, give or take, is all they account for. All right, the government spent $665 billion last year. The largest schedule is the IT-70. So let's talk about that. So let's say it accounted for $22 billion last year. If you go to it-dashboard.gov right now, you will see $92 billion as the IT investment for the US government. So $22 billion went to a schedule. Where'd the rest go?
Well, that's a good point. And so a lot of these, like, I mean, me included, when I'm looking at a lot of these opportunities, when you say 60% comes out of SAM to some degree, are you saying that it might come out where you're counting the RFI? Or are you talking about actually hitting the streets as an RFP, like this is where you're going to compete? Or you're saying that there's going to be some correlation to that opportunity where you're going to be able to see that it was posted on SAM at some
So
degree?
again, better than 60% of everything spent by the government has its origins in a synopsis on SAM or FBO. And so what it might be, remember what market research is all about. The government in some cases is trying to devise either a strategy or sources to use. And so it may start on SAM and then they may make a decision to buy it on a schedule. Or it may start on SAM and they may decide to do it as a small business set aside using a purchase order. But they all start on SAM.
Okay.
All right. So you have an opportunity to sway that decision early on, but you want to be careful about how you do that.
And what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate about careful how you do that?
So we just had this conversation with some friends of mine who are currently contracting officers or acquisition SMEs in the government. They're either warranted contracting officers or contractors that do acquisition support. And the conversation we had was about the current state of requests for information and sources sought surveys. And there's a term I coined about 12 years ago called RFI TMI. And what that means is the government across the board is asking for more information in RFIs and sources sought than they are supposed to, than is prescribed by the FAR. In fact, they're asking for information that they're not supposed to ask for because it's going to be duplicated in the actual solicitation. And the FAR actually says, don't do that. And so when you think about the level of effort you spend responding to market surveys and not actual opportunities, that is eating into your bid and proposal budget for the year. So here's the big one though. The protections that we are afforded on RFPs and RFQs about our information are not afforded in market surveys. What does that mean? Even if you mark something proprietary, all right, the government can basically choose not to accept your response, all right, on a market survey or RFI. If you don't mark it any way, shape, or form, and I've been on both sides of this over my career, Michelle submits this smashing response, tells the government exactly how to solve their problem. I'm a contractor, small business, large business in the agency. I've got a contract with ceiling and scope on it. Hey, guy, can you do this work? Yep, I can. Here you go. Done. Never hit the street, never saw the light of day. I've been on the losing side of that too. So what I'm telling everyone is, before you go pouring your heart out or even putting in budgetary information, understand what that information can be used for. You can't disclose pricing information from an RFP or an RFQ. It is protected. It is not protected in an RFI or source to sought.
So since you did answer that question, are we able to get back to my question about the
Sure.
simplified acquisitions?
Absolutely.
So a lot of people, they are asking the question, okay, it's 9:15, like we are at the final ends, like what should they be expecting? What type of vehicles or where should they be monitoring? And then the other question is like, if you are new to it and you're trying to break into an agency, like what's the appropriate way of going about it? Like, where should we be researching, or what's the best way to establish that relationship to kind of get into that agency?
So let me answer a couple different questions.
I know I asked a lot. I apologize.
No, it's fine. So it is September 15th. If you have not already responded to RFPs and RFQs by this point, start working on first quarter. Your year is basically over. And the reason why is DOD especially cuts things off traditionally around the 15th. They go into reconciliation mode at this point. So there might be some still coming out, but I will tell you, they've already got their sources, because those are the people that have been chirping in their ear since March about, hey, we're going to be here. We got you covered. If you're just showing up, you're really not in a place to be considered, because this is a relationship business. Know, like, and trust, especially when the crunch is on. So if you are just getting things going right now, either way, prepare for October 1st, which, by the way, from October 1st till the end of the calendar year, that is the second biggest spend in the fiscal year.
All right, you paused that, but what about the approach? Like,
so from an approach standpoint, it goes back to the earlier presentation and things we covered here. Who are you calling and why are you calling? If you're just doing dialing for dollars without truly understanding who's on the other end and why they may or may not matter to you, you're going to annoy people. I will tell you that hands down. Like Diane Dempsey or any contracting officer I know, if you don't understand that they do or don't buy what you sell, and you're calling up to do a pitch, you're doing it wrong. All right. And again, I've done this for years as an inside salesperson and a BD guy. What I would tell people to do is, in more or less this order: start with your market research, understand who buys what you sell, understand what they call it, understand how they buy it. Are they buying it on a purchase order, which is not an order against a contract vehicle? It's a standalone contract. Are they buying it against a definitive contract, which again is a standalone contract? You don't need a GSA schedule to win that. Are they buying it on a contract vehicle where you have a friend that's got that contract? But again, I'm going to remind everyone, basically for the last 15 years, 50% or more of what the government spends every year does not go to a contract vehicle. Just like I told you guys that NAICS codes were new to me, I was already in business for 10 years. GWACs are even newer. They didn't exist when I came into this business. Until the Cleaner Cohen Act got passed, there was no such thing as a GWAC. So that's a new vehicle for guys like me. All right. And it's not the biggest one by any stretch of the imagination. So think about that. Think about single award contracts first, and think about standalone contracts. But I would build up a body of knowledge about the organizations and the kind of people in there that you need to talk to. And what I mean is this: if you work in construction, understand what agencies you want to focus on. It depends on where you're located. It depends on what kind of work you do, vertical or horizontal, all these things. But if you work in construction, automatically you should be thinking about organizations like GSA Public Building Service, who owns and or manages every federal building not on a military reservation. That's their job. Every one of those facility managers is GSA. Army Corps of Engineers, State Department oversees buildings operations, Naval Construction Battalion. All of those groups, construction coming out the wazoo. All right. And then you want to think about who to reach out to in there. Yeah, there's the buyers, but what about the construction program managers and the agencies? Go look them up on Google or LinkedIn, get their names, and then see what kind of projects they're working on. Look at the construction budget for the agency you're calling on. Look at the forecast so you can use that to zero in on specific opportunities and potential, people to talk to. Look at the companies doing the work. Is this Gilbane, Whiting Turner, Clark, Hensel Phelps, MC Dean? Who is it? All right. Know your surroundings, build the ecosystem up, and that's where you're going to spend time. That's how you get yourself set up. Somebody asked a question, Michelle, real quick. We'll come back to yours too. Do the NAICS codes and SAM need to match what is noted in the contract opportunity? So there's two answers for this. One, according to the FAR, the guidebook that they are given, the answer is no. However, the contracting officer can require it in the solicitation. And so then the answer becomes yes. So here's the trick. You go into SAM and add the NAICS code. You're done. The only company that doesn't have that flexibility is in 8A, because if they're trying to win 8A work where SBA primes for them, that's what the program is all about, where they're guaranteeing the work, it's only the one that SBA assigned to you. So the FAR says no. There's no language in the FAR that says what's in your SAM profile, has to match what comes out in the contract, but the contracting officer can require it at the solicitation level. Okay, hopefully that helped you. All right, Michelle, what do you got next?
Oh, I was talking to myself because I forgot I was on mute.
I do that too much.
So somebody had asked a question one time. Specifically, this is related to this simplified acquisition component. they were saying like, because I know a lot of times suppliers, especially, and this is just my thought process, I would assume that, humans, we're kind of creatures of habit. So if an agency is already purchasing a good or service through a particular organization, it's unlikely that they're going to deviate from that because it's kind of more of a migraine. Do you kind of agree with that? I mean, I understand if they come and they have a new solution, but if you're buying pencils from somebody, like, why would you shift from one small business to buy pencils from another small business unless there's really a need? So am I wrong?
Competition requirements.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's competition requirements, but like, again, we have to go back to the psychology that we are creatures of habit. Like that's biological. But is like there a way that, when searching, what I was saying, like, hey, look on their spending patterns. And if you notice a company that has very similar, this was a suggestion that I did, but I'm just curious if I'm kind of like off basis. So this is like me perspective.
Okay.
If you notice that there's a company that provides similar services and they're already really strongly footprinted in there, like, so say they've been, providing services consistently for like 5 years, that means that they are satisfied with them. It's kind of like, what's the point in targeting them? But if you notice another agency that really doesn't have that consistent spending pattern, maybe that they don't have that one supplier that they have established that connection with, maybe that would be a better avenue. It's like basically looking at contract awards to figure out a narrowed source selection, or do you think that that's just not
So
okay?
I don't run away from competition
Okay.
at all. So if somebody is spending money that relates to me, I'm going to go for it because there's nothing I enjoy better than unseating an incumbent. I'm just kind of putting it out there. I mean, that's just kind of my thing. So I'll say that. And then also what I will say is the reason they might be buying from that organization might be because they couldn't get more competition.
I mean, I say yes and no. I mean, I feel like that there goes a point of like customer loyalty, like establishing that relationship.
Agencies can only have but so much loyalty.
Yeah.
All right. Again, the competition requirements kick in. All right. And so literally there are contracts they set up using what's called kind of the round robin methodology. And literally everyone gets lined up in an order and they just you get this order, then you get this one, then you get this one. And they just keep going around. Right.
Okay.
And don't buck the system because then you'll find yourself out of line.
Gotcha.
Right. Okay. Now, does everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So if Jonathan is still on, I wanted to show something real quick. This is a breakdown. This is part of our boot camp program where we actually talk about what the government spends by different contract vehicles. Awesome. So John, take a look right here. So there's two categories. Everyone pay attention to this, please. This is a freebie. The US government has not, under the FAR, there are 9 types of awards and IDVs that they use when making awards, again, under the FAR. There are 5 IDV types: BOAs, BPAs, Federal Supply Schedule, now called the Multiple Award Schedules Program, GWACs, and IDCs. Here's the trick. BOAs are agency specific, not government wide, and they can be single award or multiple award. BPAs are agency specific, not government wide, and can be single award or multiple award. Only the VA and GSA schedules and GWACs are multiple award full time. That's it. IDCs, this is what I was talking about earlier. There's 3 flavors: ID, DQ, IQ, and R. IDIQ is the biggest one, but the other 2 account for $20+ billion a year in spending. They can be single award or multiple award. What I'm going to show you is based on the last completed fiscal year, how much the government spent in each area. Now, those are the 5 IDVs. In the middle column, you'll see there are 4 award types. Delivery orders and BPA calls are the types attributed to those 5 IDVs. So when the government places an order against one of these, they're going to use one of these types. At the bottom here, definitive contract and purchase order, those are not orders against vehicles. They are orders. They are awards. So all that said, when you start looking at the dollars, all right, during that year, BOAs accounted for 14 billion total spend. BPAs accounted for 18.2 billion total spend. The schedule is kind of funky because some agencies that buy from the schedule are not FAR agencies, so they don't report to FPDS. So what you'll see in FPDS looks like this. The real number collectively is 45 billion was the total spend. All right, but even with that said, I'm going to show you the outcome here. GWACs, just so everyone understands, GWAC is a very specific vehicle. OASIS is not a GWAC. Navy Seaport is not a GWAC. HCATS is not a GWAC. GWACs are specific IT mission support vehicles established by GSA, NASA, and NIH. They are the kid sister, if you will, to an IT-70, except they are competitively awarded, where the schedules are not. Last year, 21 billion. That number is going higher this year. IDCs, if everyone's ready for this, total spending on an IDC, $259 billion. So you can add all the other contract vehicles up together. They don't even begin to touch what that does. So IDC is the single largest contract vehicle used in the government. Am I being emphatic enough for you guys? Not ready for this? The single largest contract in government is a definitive contract. Not vehicle, it's a standalone. So when you add that up with all the spending on purchase orders, in this year, it accounted, right, for just about half. But then watch this. If I go back to the top of the list, I'm going to add some numbers underneath. So that 11 billion you see under the 14 for BOA, that's how much of it was single award. BPAs, another 11 billion. Schedules and GWACs are strictly double multiple award, so those won't change. So I want to divert your eyes down to IDC. Look at that $259 billion. That's how much of it was awarded single award. So what you're looking at here, all those numbers tallied together, all right, out of $665 billion, accounted for 518 billion. That was single award. Multiple award for 2020 only accounted for 22% of the fiscal spend. That's what I was talking about earlier. This is my point. All right, we are all diverted looking at these MACs and everything. That's not where the money is. Not yet. It will be in 3 years, but not yet. Michelle, that help you?
Sorry, my mouse wasn't working. Yes,
Sorry.
no, that does. It does.
Yep. Jonathan, that cleared things for you a little bit?
He said yes,
Awesome.
sir.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah. John, call me anytime on that one, man. Seriously. I want to make sure we get you going in the right place because, you know, regardless of what you sell and regardless of who you sell to, I will show you the flip side of this. I'm not telling anyone to disregard multiple award vehicles. That is not the case. All right. What I'm telling you is know that there is other spending going on right under your nose that you want to know about.
So I know that you're kind of like informational session, but like since we have the people on here, let's get real. Like, Guy, can you talk a little bit about the type of services you provide? Because I know that you say that you love competition and you love being able to do it, but it's not as easy for the normal person that also doesn't feel as confident with it. Like if you go into a contracting officer and you're like, oh, you could do it this way. Sometimes it even comes off patronizing, but for someone like you that kind of knows it like the back of your hand, people might want to leverage those type of services. So I do want to make sure that people understand the type of services you provide from a consulting perspective, and that this is a resource that they can do, because you make it sound kind of easy, but we all know it's not.
Well, let me say it this way. The
Mhm.
reason things, we have a podcast we do called Federal Contracting Fear Factors that we started on Clubhouse. Now we're going to be doing it out on Spotify too. And what scares people more than anything else is the unknown. It's the stuff that we don't know, that we can't account for, is what scares us. So it's the same situation here. The trepidation is because maybe you don't know a certain thing well enough to kind of say, hey, look, I think this is the direction we should go in. So for me, and I'll say this, we're actually not consultants. We are strictly a membership community that is highly focused on helping people understand better, see more clearly in this space, perform at a higher level, and ultimately win more. And the way we do that is we educate you to death. This is something Michelle and I have been talking about for years on collaborating between our organizations. And I train people for a living. I will be doing a session this afternoon for our members. We call it a Pathfinders Masterclass, and it's all about defining your offering. Whether you're a brand new company or someone that is adding a new offering, these are the steps that you need to take to not only codify them internally, but also align them to your customers. So that's a masterclass. I have 2 more I'm doing later today, and then 3 more this week. So we do weekly webinars that are free. So the ones you're looking at here are the types of webinars we give to our members free every week. And then we have members only office hours. You will get more help from other people in the organization than you will from me. Not because we're not willing, because there's more of them. So people like Ton Wilson and Courtney Fairchild, who are founding members of this organization, will jump into chats or jump on webinars and talk to you about GSA schedules and proposal management on their dime, on their time, to help you out. So that's what we're all about. Everybody in the organization is vested in everybody else in the organization succeeding. So again, it's an educational, relationship building, strategy development community that we've created.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to share your screen, because I've seen the back end of his system, and that's actually something that I'm going to be talking to our board about how we can collaborate more, because it's pretty impressive. And I also wanted to make sure I've been referring a lot of people, because Guy turned me on to this new social media thing called Clubhouse that he's been doing a lot of podcasts and sessions on. So if you guys are not on Clubhouse, I just wanted him to kind of bring up those kind of things, because he's really good about connecting individuals. And I thought that some of the people on here might be interested in hearing a little bit more about that while I have you here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Look, guys, this is our website. This is what it's like if you're logged in. It's like a LinkedIn environment. It's like we've got a feed right here that everyone can put in. You'll see my wife, Maggie, there putting out a welcome for new members. You'll see people that are recently involved. Patricia, for example, leads our membership experience committee. They're part of the welcome committee. Shane McCall is the managing partner for Co-Prince Law, Steve Co-Prince's group. Constance Jackson is one of those acquisition SMEs. She actually writes source selection criteria and evaluates proposals for the U.S. government in different agencies. So these are the kind of folks that are here just kind of hanging out, answering questions. Every Monday, we do something called members only office hours. And it literally is just an opportunity. Find it real quick. There we go. So members only office hours is simply we get together and we talk for an hour over lunch on Mondays. It's pretty straightforward. So it's those kinds of activities, but it's also things, like our flagship program, which is called Ethical Stalking for Government Contractors. We've been doing this for 11 years. So we have a boot camp next week. We have companies coming in that are 20 million, 70 million, and 1 million. And the deck I was just showing you, and even a lot of the information we were just talking about, are all derivatives of this boot camp, which is a 2-day immersion program followed by 4 months of group coaching. And the whole point is simply to help you understand more about what you're doing in the federal sector, have more clarity in the information that you're seeing so you can make better decisions earlier in the cycle to gain a competitive edge. So that's more or less how it works. We've got, our People Hub. This is our member directory. This just shows you kind of where folks are around the country. You can go click in and start diving into who, which members are where, and then go into their profiles. So that's a little bit about who we are, what we've got going on at the GovCon Club. I'll put this up only for a second just to show you guys, we're not really expensive in what we do. The associate membership is winding down because we're starting a brand new chapter program. So we've got the individual membership and another one that we're calling the starter membership, which is a partnership with my guys at GovShop, which is for all those innovative companies doing UAS, UAV, and innovative technologies. We're going to have a joint membership that gives you membership with us and with them. And it's like $25 a month. That work?
I mean, I know I personally like it. And that's one of the things that, if you have a really good tool, there's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel. So I know, Jonathan, you're one of the members of the council, and Guy is actually one of our board members of the 501c3 we formed. So if you guys do like this, we are at our annual member meeting going to be doing a vote about different things about improving membership and how we better serve the HubZone companies. So, Jonathan, I would love your feedback on your thoughts about this, because, the HubZone Council, we are our members. Like it's a collaborative thing, like, figure out how we can make this all work. Also, if you guys haven't downloaded Clubhouse and, follow Guy, I highly recommend you do so. Hopefully he's going to start teaching me how to do better, like outreach and social media.
Absolutely.
So I can get out there, because honestly, like, I don't mind talking. I mean, everybody's met me. It's shutting up that I have a problem doing.
you and me both. You and me both.
Yeah, but you've got that good content coming and everything. So does anybody else have any last minute questions for Guy? I mean, obviously I know he's got a lot going on, so I don't want to hold him up if we don't have any other questions, but I also don't want to cut anybody off if they want to squeeze one more in there.
Yeah, guys, seriously, ask me anything. It doesn't even have to be related to the content we discussed today. If there's something you think that I might be able to point you in the right direction of, ask away. I'll tell you anything you want to know, except for my secret recipe for homemade pizza. That's the only thing I don't share. I'll invite you over to eat it, but I'm not giving you my
I was
recipe.
wondering if that was on the table.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh.
So we don't have breakfast in Virginia right now, and that was actually something that went away even before the pandemic. We're actually looking at bringing it back, but we are doing a happy hour this Friday for anyone that's in the DMV. We're going to be at Manor Hill Brewing in Ellicott City. There's no charge for the event. Just if you want a beer, buy it yourself. And they've got their tap room right there. But bring your lawn chairs, bring some food. There's gonna be a food truck there, and we're gonna just hang out. We were there for my daughter's back to school night. It's like a 54-acre working farm, and they've got this whole area just set up for social. I mean, 100 yards away are cows, but there's also 10 yards away is a tap room with like 18 different beers that they make right there on premise.
Wow, they should really hire you for PR, because that made me really want to go. Like, it's like a 3.5-hour drive for me. So I'm like, but but
Now
you certainly
we'll
sold it.
we'll find another one closer to you, Michelle, so we can do it there.
I mean, we do have one. I mean, we have Dawson out here, and I know somebody that owns a brewery. So,
All
I
right,
mean, I
well,
do that, but
let's
I
do
don't
it.
have any of my GovCon peeps out here. And every time I start talking, people look at me like I have 3 heads. They're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they
Well,
ask me, they're like, what do you do for a living? And I was like,
we
which
just
day
got to
is it?
bring, yeah, we got to bring you and the family down to this side for an overnight trip. You can hang out with us, and we'll do the happy hour down here.
All right, that sounds good. I actually might be in the area here soon because we've been, establishing partners with I guess the Women's Business Construction. I can't remember the acronyms of all these things, but I think that they have their advocacy event coming up in October.
Cool.
But man, after this virtual summit, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to need a lot of beers.
I know it. I get it.
I did not think this through. So I did want to remind everybody, if you're on here and you're registered for the summit, please, please, please log in and do matchmaking appointments. Honestly, we have so many buyers. And Guy, if you have some people within your network, I'm borderline getting concerned because we have so many buyers and the companies are not requesting the appointments. And we actually do have some that are, I mean, I get it. A lot of you guys more established companies are like, I'm not going to waste my time with matchmaking, but like DOT, which is going on right now, they have like 13 people coming and some of them are programs people. So it's not just all these small business specialists, like DIA at our conference. Guy, I don't know if you got to see him, but he was a senior contract specialist.
Is that PJ Quigley?
Which was surprising because we know that usually doesn't happen. But with this virtual summit, one thing that's happening is the programs people and the contracts people are getting more involved. So I'm getting like the contacts and they're like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I want you to link this person in. And I'm like, getting nervous because I was like, what if they add in a contracts person or a programs person and they don't have a full schedule? And I'm like, this is going to be so embarrassing because we're going to further the stigma that, hub zone companies don't show up or hub zone companies are lacking capacity. And like, that just sets us we go 10 feet backwards. So if you are registered and you haven't done matchmaking, please do it. I get it. We're all really, really busy, but it's not just about meeting with them. It's about really showing the capacity of these hub zone companies because we can't ask for set asides and we can't ask for change if we don't show up. Right. So I am sorry to put all that on you guys, but
no.
I need you.
That is the call to action that I think you need to do. And if there's something you want me to push out, Michelle, to help with that, send it to me. I'll get it out for you today.
Okay, I appreciate that because
absolutely
I need my strong people. Okay.
Hey, look, we got you covered.
I appreciate it. So with that,
hey, I'll let everyone know real quick. So I think Jason and Ileana asked. So hopefully the event's on the screen. That's the happy hour right there. So anyone that's interested, there's no charge for it. Simply show up. So the address is on the screen. I'm going to be there the whole time, 4 to 7, hanging out. So you want to get on my good side, buy me a Pilsner. That's number 2. And I'll tell you whatever you want to know. But we're going to be there from 4 to 7. That's the address. Again, you don't have to register for it on our site. The RSVP is more for our members, but simply show up and we'll be there. Just only, read the instructions on the event. You can't bring outside alcohol. It'll mess up their license. But again, if you want to bring food of any type, a tent, if you want to bring the family, we're calling it a happy family hour because, my daughter was going to probably be there at some point too. She's 11. So it's that kind of a get together. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys out there.
All right. Awesome. Man, I wish we would live closer. Okay. Apparently Ileana's fine with doing the drive though. But thank you again, Guy. As always, you're absolutely amazing. And I really appreciate you so much. And I just feel so thankful to have you in my life.
Hey, look, it goes both ways. I think you're a rock star. You do so many good things for so many people and you're constantly busting your tail to get things done. And I want to be behind good people like you so that you guys can succeed because you're doing a lot of good work. And I hope everyone appreciates just how much you put into this, blood, sweat, and tears to make this work.
Yeah, there was a lot of all of those going on. A lot of crying the last couple of days when we had system glitches. So sorry if anybody got like a million emails. And Jonathan, I'm glad that you finally got to like really have this connection with Guy. I do think that you guys should have a conversation offline, because I think that it would be a very beneficial relationship. So without further ado, Guy, I'll let you sign us off, and I will see you guys. Remember, we do have an